This is Democracy Watch. So Trump's first criminal trial is underway. Right now in New York, I want to point your attention to a tweet that's gained some attention on the right, and throughout the rest of the ecosystem as well. A conservative internet provocateur. His name is Clay Travis. He wrote, if you're a Trump supporter in New York City, who is part of the jury pool, do everything you can to get seated on the jury, and then refuse to convict as a matter of principle, dooming the case via hung jury. It's the most patriotic thing you could possibly do. Is this instruction legal? Because it sounds like jury tampering. Okay, so it's not the most patriotic thing you could do. It's the most illegal thing you could do. So, I strongly recommend, if you are listening to someone named Clay Travis, you probably need a lawyer. Okay, because you are not allowed to lie to the judge during jury selection, and the judge during jury selection will ask every prospective juror a series of questions. Some of the questions that has come up with some of the questions that you parties have come up with. Other questions will come up along the way, but fundamental to all of the questions are, can you be fair? Do you have an open mind? Will you follow the evidence? And are you able to render a verdict based on that evidence? So to the extent whoever Mr. Travis is suggesting to you that you do something other than that, don't do it. Don't lie. Get off the jury. If you are unable to be open-minded, if you purposely get on a jury and have a closed mind, it sometimes comes up. The other jurors will actually rat you out during deliberations. They'll be like this. One juror wouldn't deliver anything so bad idea. Now with this guy, Clay Travis himself, and have any legal exposure for suggesting as much now. Do we know if Clay Travis is actually a real person? Or is he just like an internet account? Right? But like one of Elon's manifestations. I mean, I've been dealing with this over the last few days. There's one guy who's like, Mark, how does it feel to have lost that big case when you worked in the White House? And I'm like, I never worked in the White House. Now, he's fighting on the internet about with other people that he thinks I did work in the White House. But in any event, look, I don't think a judge is going to track down Clay Travis. With all due respect to Mr. Travis' profile, he's just not going to be worth it. I mean, theoretically, he would have legal exposure for this, but he would say it's just First Amendment speech. But look, I think that the liability here would be on anyone dumb enough to follow Travis's advice. How confident are you that the prosecutors would be able to weed out any moles that did make their way onto a jury? Yeah, so it's not just the prosecutors, right? It's the don't overestimate the role of the parties in jury selection versus the judge, right? They all play a role here. But judges have this judge in particular, is very experienced, has overseen the choosing of a lot of juries and a lot of high-profile cases, and they have ways of asking and re-ask questions that are intended to ferret out these kinds of have moles, as you put it. They gather a lot of information. They ask them a lot of questions. It doesn't mean that once in a blue moon, they don't get through. But between the judges' questions and the ability of the prosecutors to strike jurors who just give them a gut sense, each side gets a certain number of what are called preemptions, which is basically you get to challenge them for no reason, as long as it's not a legal reason, just based on a gut sense. The prosecutors, who also have done a lot of jury selection in Manhattan, in New York City, will have the ability to strike those people as well. Okay, now moving on to day one of the trial itself. Trump was complaining that the judge wasn't allowing him to attend his son's high school graduation. First of all, that's not true. The judge didn't even rule on that question yet. But more broadly, what's your reaction to this sense of victimhood from the guy who's charged with committing 34 felonies? I'm sorry, I fell asleep. Look, this guy is sleeping through his own trial. Donald Trump, he's not enough, and Selena there, his own trial. Could you imagine if he actually went to Barron's high school graduation? How much sleeping he would do. He'd catch up on, like he'd get an entire mid-afternoon nap. I doubt that Donald Trump actually intended or intends to go to Barron's high school graduation. He doesn't seem to be overly involved. Father, what I mean? Like school auditoriums doesn't seem like his vibe. Yeah, but look, as you point out, like he is already complaining about having to miss his son's graduation. He's also complaining about missing the Supreme Court argument. He's complaining about not being able to campaign. He's complaining, he's complaining, he's complaining, he just wants to complain. The fact is that the criminal defendant is out, on bail as a privilege. Okay, like he's not in custody right now because you know he is. He has met the requirements to not be in custody. But as a criminal defendant, there are certain obligations you have, and the minimum one, what the absolute minimum one is to show up to your own trial every day. Yeah, right, like you cannot it is not an optional event. It's not like, oh, yeah, this day seems really boring, and I'll skip. He has to serve to trial every day. That is actually a requirement. The judge actually had to read him as a warning. That said, if you don't show up to trial, we will issue an arrest warrant, and you will be, you'll be arrested. So look, he is not. The judge has not yet actually denied the request to go to his graduation. But I think the judge will deny it because, as you know, can't miss the trial, and it would meaning that the jury is inconvenienced, because the jury would then have to take that day off. So I think, Barron will have to live with the indignity of Donald Trump not sleeping in the audience during his training. There is also some irony in the fact that all of this is happening. This trial right now is happening because just weeks or months after Barron himself was born, Donald Trump decided to have an affair with a woman named Stormy Daniels, who he then would pay hush money to, in an illegal campaign finance scheme. And that is the very issue that he's on trial for right now. So spare us the Father of the Year routine. Yeah, it's also, by the way, really interesting, and I don't know if you've noticed this. It hasn't been widely reported, but I think it's really important for people out there who are watching the trial to note is, as far as I can tell, neither Melania, Noir Barron, or any of the other Trump kids have actually shown up to stand by their father at the trial, which is like the bare minimum of criminal defendant sort of posturing, right? Which is that when you are on trial, the least you want is your family sitting behind you, so that the jury and the judge and everyone sees that there is someone in the world who cares about you, like your wife, your children. He apparently can't even muster that, so I don't think that, as you say, he's going to win Father of the Year award, and I think his family seems to be voting with its feet. Yeah, exactly. Trump is also claiming that he's heard many legal scholars because, as you must know, Donald Trump is very attuned to the intricacies of the world of legal size. That was legal scholars hangs out with legal scholars. That this case shouldn't have even been brought. Can you discuss why this case should have been brought, and why it is especially strong? So I actually saw this post, not tweet, whatever it is that he posted, and then he said it orally this morning. So it actually looking for the legal scholars, like I was, trying to figure out who the hell is even talking about. So it's like Jonathan Turley, he mentioned, of course, which was like the rubber stamp for any conservative position. Yeah, Jonathan Turley is just Michael Lindell, with right, if Jonathan truly made pillows, and didn't have a guaranteed job at George Washington Law School, you'd be in the same guy, you'd be oh, yeah, which right, which one is somewhere below, Overstock, calm guy would be Jonathan Turley, look, there is no legal scholar who knows anything about campaign finance law, who knows anything about New York criminal law, who thinks that this case shouldn't have been brought. This is a relatively straightforward case, which is why Donald Trump is so panicked about it. Because, as you pointed out, it is pretty much without doubt that he had an affair with Stormy Daniels. As you point out, the timing of it is somewhat inconvenient for the Father of the Year award, that he also, let's not forget, had an affair with another woman. That other woman was paid hush money by the National Enquirer. How do we know that? Because the National Enquirer will say, publisher will say that that's what happened, and Stormy Daniels will pay him much money. How do we know that? Because there are checks to Stormy Daniels, signed by Donald Trump, and Michael Cohen will testify that, so the underlying facts around this are actually not in dispute. So I don't think that he's going to win on the legal scholar front.